Hello, my name is Noah Hirschman. I'm going to give you a brief introduction about cross-border trade, sort of the simple basic formula for how cross-border trade works. So what is cross-border trade? Well, if you look at the traditional retail ecosystem, there's about 5 different ways to mark up the product. So what I mean by markup is that make the price a little bit higher, a little bit higher. So you start at the factory, and then you sell it to the exporter. The exporter marks up the price, sells it to the importer, who sells it to the distributor, who sells it to the retailer, who finally sells it to the end user or the customer. And so it's been through about 5 different markups, and sometimes from the original price to the actual retail price that the customer pays, it can be 3-4 times the actual price through this traditional retail markup. Cross-border trade actually is different. Cross-border trade eliminates a lot of these different stages of the retail ecosystem. And instead, you can go either a B2B or a B2C cross-border trade model. The B2B is from the factory to the retailer to the consumer. And then a B2C just goes right from the factory to the consumer. And the benefit for this is that, well, 2 benefits. One of them is that you can obviously get a much lower cost. But the other one is that since all the inventory that's in China, we're talking specifically about China, is available to you online, you have basically an unlimited selection from which to choose. So what are the benefits? Well, so far there's 94 million cross-border shoppers. We're going to do about 105 billion in 2013. 2018, there could be as much as over 300 billion in cross-border trade. And the benefits really, there's 2 reasons when you take a survey of why people who are cross-border shoppers use the cross-border shopping, is because the first one is to save money, which I already said. The second one is, of course, that you get an access to much larger variety of products online than they could find from their local stores. So if you're using a local domestic distributor, they are limited to the amount of selection of products that they can carry because they have to pay for their inventory and they have to turn their inventory fast. So really they're only interested in selling what's the top selling products. They're not interested in carrying a long tail. So if you really want a good long tail, maybe the best long tail is you don't have to bring it in at all until it's actually bought by the customer and then it's shipped directly from the manufacturer. Before there was this kind of cross-border trade, how people used to buy products from China is that they usually mostly did OEM, so that's original equipment manufacturing. And what they do is they'd find a factory, they'd work with the factory on building a private label brand product. They'd build the tool, they build the industrial industrial design, and then they would build the tool, make the prototype, and then actually go into production. And then they have to buy a minimum quantity because they'd have to amortize the cost of building the tool. So usually a minimum quantity would be maybe 30,000 pieces. They take these 30,000 pieces, put them into a container, stick them on a boat, and so from the time that the product is conceived, somebody has an idea, maybe I need to make something, to the time it's actually available for sale to the customer in their stores, could be as long as 9 months. And there's also, you have to put up cash up front to be able to do this. So this was, up until maybe only a couple of years ago, this was the traditional China trade model. Well, things have changed, and there's been a greater appetite for global goods. If you look at this graph, you'll see that places like Australia, places like US, over 40, 50, 60, 70% of their goods are imported from other countries. So what is this cross-border trade ecosystem that eliminates this middleman, that's much, much faster than the traditional OEM method, okay? So what it is first you have a seller, and the seller is anyone in China who makes products or sells products. And then after the product starts with the seller, then there has to be a trade assistant, unless the seller can do it themselves, but they have to build listings, because we're talking about online sales mostly, and you have to be able to build take the photograph of the product, and then you have to be able to make the title, and they have to be able to speak English or whatever language the platform is in, and then there has to be a listing that make people want to actually buy the product. The third thing is the platform. I'm using DHgate as the example, but there's other platforms as well. eBay would be another one that uses cross-border trade, and people can go to the platform, go to the website, and buy these products. Okay. Once the order is placed, they have to be shipped, and it's shipped directly from the seller directly to the buyer. So that's the ecosystem. So if we drill down a little bit into this ecosystem, we'll see that what are the types of sellers? Well, there's the direct manufacturer, the person who actually builds the goods in their factory. Okay, but there are also these traders. If you go to some of these places like eWoo, you'll see though hundreds and hundreds, if not more, of these little stores that specialize in particular types of products. And these are people who buy from the manufacturer and then sell again. Okay, and then of course there's the traditional wholesaler who will buy massive quantities of across the board of different products. Okay, so these are the three main types of sellers that you will see. The manufacturer, who is the most specialized, will have the cheapest price but may have the smallest selection, and the wholesaler, who cuts across multiple different types of products, will have a larger selection but maybe they'll have a higher price. The trade assistant, and I use this example of the eBay store from this movie called The 4-Year-Old Virgin, where someone has an eBay store and they actually prepare your products to be sold on eBay. Well, this is the same type of thing. A manufacturer usually doesn't have a lot of skill or resources to be able to sell their products online, so you need someone who can get the product description and the photo and everything ready to be able to sell online. And this trade assistants do multiple things. They can take a picture of the product, because the product usually, the pictures have to conform to certain standards to be on international websites. They have to build a title. They have to write a title and a description. And then if there's different language websites, if they're selling it to Russia, they're selling it to France, etc., they would have to translate the description into whatever language that platform sells it to. Different types of shippers as well. So there's freight consolidators, freight forwarders, carriers, warehousing services, people who provide full service, which includes forward logistics, reverse logistics, liquidation, all these kinds of things. And so you need to be able to obviously find a shipper who can fit your needs and can get the product fast and cheap to your final customer. But the truth is, people don't want to wait. I call this the Amazon syndrome. In China, you can also call it the Jingdong syndrome, which is people are used to getting their products in 1 or 2 days. Now, things are getting quicker, and there's different types of shipping that can get products there in less than a week, but you're averaging about 10 days. But if you look at places like Russia, where they have low level of supply, they're willing to wait they're willing to wait over 12 days. But in Korea, where they have a very mature e-commerce market, they will only be willing to wait 4 days. So the key to making this work is fast shipping. And this is something that DHL and other people really are taking seriously. This is a quote from the CEO who says, they're going to get faster and faster and grow their cross-border trade more and more every single year. Another thing that is allowing people to ship faster and more cheaply are these joint ventures between multiple countries' post offices. So here's an example of ePacket, which is a joint venture between the U.S. Postal Service, Hong Kong Post, and China Post, where you can ship up to 2-kilogram package for under $3. And so these things are also making it faster. They're trackable, and also you can ship within 10 days. There are different types of platforms when we go into the ecosystem. One of them is a connection platform. So this is a website that allows a buyer and a seller, and this is mostly B2B, to be able to connect with each other, and then they can find, the buyer can find products that the seller sells, and then they make a deal off platform. So this is an advertising kind of a platform. The other one, which is the DHgate platform or the eBay platform, both are transactional platforms, and these platforms allow the buyer to actually buy from the seller, and the seller actually, they process the transaction, the seller gets paid through the platform. So what are the different types of buyers? The cross-border trade buyers, there's generally 3, there's probably more, but we'll talk about 3 here. And one of them is this person who's looking for a costly item at a better price. So people who get married usually have to buy wedding dresses. Wedding dresses are extremely expensive, and if you buy a wedding dress in the United States, for example, it could be many thousands of dollars. You could get a similar quality of wedding dress through cross-border trade for only a few $100s. So much less costly. And as people are getting married, weddings are in themselves are very expensive, so they're trying to cut down every type of expense. And so this is the typical cross-border trade person who's going to get the high-quality product at the low price. Another one is this customers looking for unbranded items. So some people care about what brands they carry. Some people they have, and some people don't. So some people want to have an iPhone. Some people don't care if it's an iPhone as long as it's got great functionality and the price is good. And so this is the customer looking for unbranded items. And then finally, because in China especially, these products are being made at the cutting edge of technology, everything is made here, especially high-tech products, people who want to buy technology first also can buy directly from China because they can get it ahead of the curve before it's actually imported by somebody into the United States or another country. The types of B buyers are the eBay and Amazon seller. So this is someone who has an eBay store, is an Amazon third-party partner, is FBA, Amazon Prime, these kinds of people. They can buy directly from cross-border sites, and they don't have to buy from domestic. They can save money, and they can make a higher profit by selling on Amazon. Another one is a small proprietor of a bricks-and-mortar store, people who have fashion boutiques, makeup boutiques, all sorts of toys, etc., can buy directly from China and save a lot of money rather than having to buy from a wholesaler. And also, they're buying clubs. People who get together and they pool their resources. They're interested in buying something like there's many moms clubs. People have to buy things for their kids, diapers, etc. If they pool their resources, they can buy in bulk and buy much cheaper. So what's happened is, through this cross-border trade, is that the Chinese brands are starting to emerge. And the typical OEM model from before, which is the one we started off with, has got what we call a 95-5 or sometimes a 97-3 profit distribution, meaning 95% of the total purchase price goes to the brand and only 5% goes to the factory. So we'll use the iPhone example. An iPhone, which may sell for $650, costs between $12 and $30 to make. So that means that Apple makes a total profit of 72%, and China actually only makes maybe 5%. And so if it's because the labor costs are so cheap and China is so good at manufacturing, if this same iPhone were made in the US, the price would have to, Apple would only make half of 50%, and the manufacturer would make 50%, right? So Chinese brands are saying, hey, wait a second, we're actually building this thing. We're many times helping to design it. We're doing the quality control. We're doing all the heavy lifting, but we're only making 5% of the profit. And this is where cross-border trade really has started, because people are saying, we want to build our own products. We want to make our own brands. The factories want to be able to make more profit. And so therefore, they want to be able to sell directly to the customer and have to stop this sort of OEM game. And as you see, as the result of this, there's lots and lots of new Chinese brands that have come up. The quality is very high because they're oftentimes, if not always, the same factories that build the more famous brands. They have the same quality. They've been building these brands as an OEM provider for 10 or 15 years, so they're really quite good at it. But now they're just selling things with obviously slightly different IP, and so they don't try to actually copy things, but they do things slightly differently so that they're their own product and they own the rights to that. So this is one of the benefits of it is that you will see more and more popular Chinese brands coming from cross-border trade. So that is my introduction to cross-border trade talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for your attention.